Hi, I'm Deke. Welcome to another Wraith guide to Crusader and Diablo Immortal. Today I want to talk about my go-to Battleground PvP build, but before we get into the build, I have a disclaimer regarding the overall expectations for PvP in Diablo Immortal. It isn't balanced, and it is pay to win. Resonance is king in your leaderboard ranking because the ceiling that you have is based on your resonance. Meaning, if you have a high resonance, you won't start losing points until a much higher leaderboard score. Right? So that threshold is much higher for high resonance players. So if you're a low resonance player and you're in the top 10, you're probably doing pretty good. But you may not be having a lot of fun because you just become a ping pong ball for the whales. Attacking generally loses and defending generally wins. Now, they've made an update that makes it so that the defenders have to have more kills, 65 now, before they win. I haven't really seen much difference in this. Then you do sometimes see these attacking games that just steamroll and win very fast, but that's because that team gets 2 or 3 7K whales and there's just no way to stop it. So there's a lot of imbalance in the game. There's imbalance in the game because of resonance. There's imbalance in the game even amongst the classes themselves. So with that out of the way, I want to walk you through the build that I use in Battlegrounds. And this build can hang with the high resonance players if you play smart. I call this the Bubble Bomb. I'm sure you've seen some version of this build before. Many Crusaders use some version of this, but I want to go over how I build it and how I play it. And just as a reference, my KDA for last season was 280 kills, 185 deaths, and 570 assists over 50 games. And most of these involved 6 to 7K players. And my max resonance is 2880. Okay, let's get into the build. The skills we'll be using for this build are Sacred Fire as your primary, Holy Banner, Conjuration of Light, Drawn Quarter, and Condemn. These will be heavily augmented by your essences. So for the helm, you're going to be using the Arrow Keeper, big surprise. Anytime you're using Banner, you pretty much have to have this essence so that you can keep the banner alive and carry it around with you. For the chest, we're going to use the Iron Suzerain, which is Condemn now continuously drags enemies towards you, and we get a Condemn damage increase, which is huge for the build. For the shoulders, we want to use the Wind Blessed Pauldrons to get the Conjuration of Light duration increase. For the legs, we want the Permanent Reproach, which is going to increase Condemn's radius, which is huge. It takes up the whole lane, pretty much gets everybody. For the main hand, we're going to use the Horn Splitter, so we get that burning over time effect on targets when they run away. We can get some kills. And then we want the Torrential Refrain for the offhand, which is going to give us Condemn immediately triggering its damage on the targets it hits. We're going to use the 4-piece Urges set to get the additional beneficial effect duration and some attack speed. We're going to use the 2-piece Shell Boss to get additional primary attack damage, which is going to be your basically only way of dealing damage when your skills are on cooldown. And then, of course, we're going to use the Gladiator Paragon tree. So let's get into some gameplay, and I'll talk you through kind of my thought process when playing the build. So basically the way you're going to play this is you're going to cast Holy Banner, you're going to cast your Bubble, you're going to cast your Horse, and then you're going to run in and use your Condemn, which is going to vortex everybody around you in, and it's also going to detonate this massive critical strike on every single target that you hit. Monks are kind of difficult to deal with this build because they have immunity to your CC, so they just run right through it. They don't get disrupted. And their Zen Shield basically eats all the damage anyway. So once your cooldowns are used, you effectively need to fall back, and usually probably bandage unless you got out super early. Condemn is going to come back off of cooldown much faster than your other skills, so what I tend to do is I tend to play kind of in the back of my team, and if Barbarians or Crusaders run in to try to attack my other DPS, then I'll Condemn to disrupt them. But I don't hard engage because without Bubble, I'm most likely going to die. The most effective uses for this build are either playing Disruption to help your teammates do damage, or sweeping in after there's been a lot of damage dealt to the battlefield and disrupting all of the enemy bandages and probably getting a lot of kills. You definitely don't want to chase down targets with this build. Now, you have a horse and you can get on people, but if you start trying to chase a demon hunter or a monk or something like that, they're probably going to outplay you because you just don't have enough utility in the kit to outplay them. Like if you don't blow them up with your first Condemn crit banner, then it's just not smart to chase them down. The best move is to fall back, bandage, regroup with your team, and, await an objective play. This build tends to be a little bit counterintuitive in terms of what my play style is as someone that was a tank main in WoW and other ways I just love playing tank. You're not a tank in this build. You're immune when you have bubble up, but what you're really trying to do is get in quickly, blow up targets, and then fall back. Get your cooldowns, kind of play goalie with Condemn because it has such a short cooldown, and then rinse and repeat. You're not really doing like a Barb style kind of tanky build where you're just sitting on top of targets for long periods of time. Once you've nuked with your Condemn, just get away. There are a couple of weaknesses with this build, and I've seen some augmentations that you may find helpful, but I still prefer kind of the way I play it. But in PvP at this point in the game, with the amount of CC there is, everything is a knockback, which means that you're going to get knocked off of your horse. So a good necromancer, a good demon hunter, they're watching for this, and as soon as you charge in on your horse, they're going to do a knockback, they're going to kill your horse, slow you down, and you're not going to make it to your Condemn. That's why you don't ever want to cast Condemn before you're on top of your targets. You want your banner, your bubble, but you want to hit Condemn once you're on top of targets so you don't waste it. Another issue that I find, which there's not really any way to prevent this, but even though your shield prevents damage while it's up, it does not stop you from getting damage over time effects applied to you. So when your bubble is down, you'll start ticking with Seeping Bile, with Everlasting Torment, with a number of burn effects. So you just need to wait until all of those effects fall off of you to bandage, which actually works out because you're waiting so long to get your banner and your bubble cooldowns back anyway. One thing to note is that combat rating is relevant in Battlegrounds, even though it's capped at a 10% bonus and a 10% damage reduction. Some of the higher resonance players have upwards of 16, 17k combat rating, so you want to get as much into your build as you can without sacrificing your sets and items that you need to use. I hope this guide has been helpful for the Crusaders out there, and if you have questions or comments, just leave them in the comments section, and happy Crusading!